Hey guys, Clint Culberson, lordsofconsciousness.com. I am here today in my backyard and I wanted to share with everyone something that I had heard on a David-Icke video cast. If you don't know David-Icke, that's David-Icke. I couldn't more highly recommend that you delve into the teachings that he's had. I mean, from decades of studies, and he's really peeled back the curtain behind what is going on in this world and what this reality is, and the story, the human story, and how it's taken place, and how it's led to exactly the situations we're dealing with right now, today, in this world, right now in 2016. It is important to understand the past, and I hope that, if you're really someone who is looking to explore beyond what is seen in terms of what the mass media is showing us, then and if you have an open mind for it, then I would definitely say look into David-Icke. On David-Icke's video cast, he shared an article I wanted to share with you guys from the New Yorker, and it's a report on terrorism. Terrorism's such the buzzword over the last 15 years, ever since 9/11 especially. The war on terror, it's terrorism, terror this, fear, 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 fear. And David-Icke decided to share, he shared these statistics from this article, and I wanted to read them to you. So in 2014, terrorists, quote unquote, caused 37 deaths in Western countries, which made up 0.11% of the total world terrorist deaths. So only 37 people in all of the Western countries. In 2014, he goes on to say that there were 700,000 cardiovascular disease deaths in the U.S. alone. There were 500,000 cancer deaths, 32,000 road accident deaths, and 88,000 alcohol-related deaths. 0 marijuana deaths, but that's for another topic for another time. But going back, so anti-terrorism spending is more than 50,000 times more than any other cause of death. So the United States of America spends 50,000 times more for those deaths than any other cause. The U.S. spends over $500 million for every terrorist victim. U.S. cancer research is only $10,000 per victim. And we only spend $2,000 in the United States of America for every victim of strokes. The government spends $150 billion per annum on anti-terrorism measures. And the U.S. only spent $2 billion in research against the #1 killer in the nation, heart disease, and only $300 million on research for the #3 killer in the country, strokes. And again, so we're spending $150 billion with a big B, a big fat B, $150 billion on anti-terrorist measures. And so one must ask, what about the deaths inflicted by the American anti-terrorism efforts? Okay, when you consider, there's probably been less than 5,000 deaths, even since, including 9/11, in the last 15 years from what mainstream media would call terrorists, basically non-Westerners with different color skin usually. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. What has been the effects of that anti-terrorism effort? The Physicians for Social Responsibility released a study saying that the total death toll from the war on terror over the past 10 years since the 9/11 attacks is 1.3 million to 2 million people. And when you consider what a huge disparity that is, you got to start thinking, what's going on here? I mean, when you start realizing how much more our government is spending on preventing terrorist deaths over preventing cardiovascular deaths and other health ailments that stress-induced health ailments, you know, especially when you're talking cardiovascular and cancers and alcohol, all of these come from stress. These are all preventable preventable deaths. And when you realize where our government allocates the funds, you start to realize that our government doesn't care about us, okay? There's another agenda being played out here. And it's really important to realize it, because the statistics will back this up. And as David-Icke showed, you know, from this article from the New Yorker, I wanted to read to you a quote from a man named Daniel Crimmins, who was in the U.S. Army 3rd Infantry Division, who had this most amazing article that got popular on Reddit, and it was, you know, he's an ex-Iraqi war soldier. He says, "You grew up wanting so badly to be Luke Skywalker, but you realized that you were basically a stormtrooper, a faceless, nameless rifleman carrying a spear for empire, and you start to accept the startlingly obvious truth that these are people like you." In 2016, I think it's so vital that we realize that it is time for war to end in this planet. And when you start looking at how absurd it is that we even get into these wars anymore, especially now that, you know, with the internet, with cameras in everyone's pocket, we've been able to start seeing the truth behind what our governments have been telling us, okay? And, you know, it's taken some time, but now there's a mass consensus that the mainstream media, which has shaped our lives, every single person that's watching this video, mainstream media has definitely shaped your mind, your perception, your perspective of reality. And I'm here to say that we've kind of been screwed over in that sense, okay? It was not a source that was of pure you know, creation at all. And, you know, when you see statistics like this that David-Icke is showing, you start to realize that there's some other agenda going on. And I'm not here to say that right now in this video, but you can go out there and you can start studying what is going on, and your guess is as good as mine on what the agenda is. But there are a lot of evidences pointing towards that it's something far different than what we're being told. And it's really up to each of us to actually, you know, to look into this, because, you know, David-Icke gets a lot of criticism for focusing only on the problems, okay? But in his response is, you know, why aren't you focusing on the solutions, they say. But his response is, the problem is if you create solutions to problems that you don't fully understand, then all you're doing is creating a solution that is going to have further problems. And I do believe that's true, you know, because you can see it over the history of time, how, you know, over time, humanity has been given rights, you know, personal rights, slowly but surely. They don't give it to you all at once, you know. We jump up and down that there's, you know, legalization of cannabis or gay rights or even, you know, race rights, you know, like a black man can walk down the street without, you know, being told he's got to go somewhere else. I mean, the fact that we think that those are victories is honestly a joke. Like, it's a joke that we're even in this situation to begin with, you know. It's a joke that we haven't, as the slaves, just stood up and said no more of this. I mean, we act like, oh, thank you for giving us gay rights. What do you mean? It's as if it's theirs to give it, as if it's theirs to give, you know. And I think it's really, really important to understand what is going on in this world today, to not just bury our heads in the sand, not even just bury it in the sand for our own self, but to realize that we need to be speaking up about what's happening out there, and so we can put an end to it, because what's happening out there is affecting everyone's lives. Everyone who is on this planet is affected by this agenda that's being played out. All right, lordsofconsciousness.com. Thank you.